Right guys, so what you see here is the structure of the operating system and the parts of the operating system that actually make it the operating system, right? So now there are 6 core parts of the operating system. Different operating systems, there are some quite different structures, but without these are the basic structures of the operating system. And obviously the device that you are using right now, it actually has these structures of the operating system. Now I'm going to explain each one of them, right? So we have the user interface. Hapa so nganamu ikata phone, what you are interacting with, such as the apps, the buttons, and so on, are what we call the user interface. A part of a device of a computer that actually makes it possible for the user to interact with the operating system itself. Those are the parts that are able to interact with, such as some buttons, the screens and what is displayed on the screens, those apps that you see, yeah, you're only able to interact with them because they are defined in a way such that you are able to interact. Because behind those structures that you see on the phone or on the computer, the apps that you see and other software programs, there are programs behind that are running that the human language cannot easily interpret. As we go on, Casta explain about this. The computer is able to speak in a certain language that you don't understand, right? And then these creative people were like, okay, let's create something, an interface, you understand what an interface is, right? An interface that will stand in between the computer and the person so that the user will be able to understand. So in the background, this user interface actually interprets what you input, for example, a number or any input that you take in, such that the computer is now able to understand what you take in and it's able to give you an output, right? This goes for all types of devices that actually make it possible for the person to interact. Nangmapa ATM padia. Nangmapa ATM, you are able to interact with the parts of the ATM, right? Where you enter a card and it tells you to enter a PIN and so on, and check the balance, and that's the front part that the human person is able to understand. And then there is the part that the computer is able to understand. As we go on, we will go through this. This is a crucial part of computer science. Now let's go on. System programs. So these provide useful tools for system management, right? Like, for example, the apps that you use, right? Those are programs that are designed. Let me give an example. For phones, we have built-in apps such as Google Maps, calculators, and so on. And then when you go to the computer, we have system programs like Microsoft Windows that you're able to interact with, and any other app that you see on the device and that you use on the device. It can be any device, like I say. We are just talking about basic structure of any operating system, including any laptop. So those are what we call system tools and programs. And then we have system calls or APIs. The best example in Ngapele system calls are like you're in an organization, right? For an organization to be able to interact, landlines. So for example, if I'm in room 10 and I want to communicate with someone who's in room 3, I can use a call that, I want to communicate with someone who's in room 3, and then I'm able to communicate with that person. So system calls are just like the same way. System calls, they're like programs that help you interact with it. They're like programs that help you interact with other programs in the computer. For example, when you place a button, right? Let's say you press a button, that information is sent and then a response is given. It's like system programs. They help you understand. They help link the user with the computer itself, right? So that is one of the basic example on Ngapela, but I can be able to explain it further. You see, for example, so like I was saying, so system programs, system calls. Yeah, like I said, they're just like a communication channel. In an organization, you're able to communicate with this. For example, let's say you want to delete something or you want to do something, and then the computer is able to do like, oh, okay, you want to delete this cell, let me make a system call in the background. So this is actually a low level thing. As we go on, I'll be able to see that. Then AMA APIs are like, let me see what we call them. They're like application programming interfaces, right? Application programming interfaces, like they stand in between programs. For example, they help different types of programs to be able to interact with each other. Think of them like then buli guys alanda ekisumbu then pakati palimu guys wisibe kulanda ekisumbu nokulanda ekipemba then number filanga ndefo ati I want to get something from the English person. I go through buli guys wisibe kusa translate filya or ampukira ekintu kuli guys nananga lefo kusantara kulini the same is done, right? So that's how AMA APIs are born. But they're just like programs that stand in between that stand in between programs, different programs of a computer. As we go on, we'll also be able to understand this when you start programming and so on. We usually, actually, the people who actually understand APIs are usually programmers. Then we have device drivers. Now, for device drivers, if you understand Pama APIs, now device drivers, for them, they don't just interact with, they're like system calls, except for that device drivers, they help the user, the operating system interact with the hardware parts of the computer and peripheral devices that are put in. For example, when you connect a printer, there should be a driver for printer in the computer. Without the drivers of the computer that deal with printing, you won't be able to print, right? There's also drivers for the flash drive that you put in. So what the drivers does is that it's able to interpret or interact the user and the peripheral devices that you add to the computer with the operating system, right? They help the hardware part of the computer interact with the software part of the operating system. Yeah. And then we have what we call the kernel, which is one of the most important parts of this whole thing, because without this kernel, whatever you call it, all of these things wouldn't be able to exist, right? So the kernel is actually the crucial part, like I said, and it helps in managing memory, the CPU, devices, file security, and networking of the computer. So without V6A, nothing can happen. Have you ever wondered why when you download the into by internet, you are still without you telling the device where that what you've downloaded is put in, the phone is able to actually allocate that file that you've downloaded or whatever that you've downloaded into the correct folder. Have you ever wondered why? Download a video, videos, download the song, audios. If you look at that, you'll be able to understand the function of the kernel. It just doesn't help designate files. It also helps in maintaining and controlling memory and giving memory and also assigning temporal memory or virtual memory as well. So for virtual memory, I'll explain a little bit as we go on. Okay, let me just explain right now. So for virtual memory, there are different types of memory. And virtual memory is something like when the operating system has used up the current memory, which is RAM, and now we need to use more RAM. So it uses that that storage RAM. For example, let's say it's a hard drive. It uses parts of the hard drive so that the process could be able to continue. That requires the RAM to be used. Think of it like using permanent storage for a temporal process, and then it's returned back once that is done. For those who use SSD types of laptops, you'll be able to understand what this is. If you have any other questions, just you can post them in the comments and so on. Maybe I can be able to explain this further and so on. Let's not continue this video, it will take too much time, right? And then we have the hardware. We all know what the hardware is, right? I'm using a desktop as we speak, and I'm touching the laptop for me to move the cursor on the board, for me to type, for me to do what. This is the hardware part of a computer. The hardware part of a computer that you can feel, touch, and see. The hard drive, the memories, the peripheral devices, the keyboards, the screen itself, that's the hardware part, right? The physical part of the computer that interacts with the software. So that is the basic structure of the operating system, and I hope you guys have actually really understood where we're coming from. And so where we started, if you watch the previous video that you see here, if you watch the previous video, it will be easy for you to understand, because I'm a basics to Amba now. We're starting to explain what really computing is and what computers are and what actually happens in the background. So I know this might seem to be boring, but for you to understand what really computing is and what computer science is about, you need to understand the operating system. You need to understand the basic structure of the operating systems. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about different types of operating system, or our day-to-day operating systems. We don't even know the types of operating systems that I actually use, right? But to my phone, Samsung, iPhone, and yet you don't even know the type of operating system you're using. So watch the next video, and I really hope you enjoy watching this video. If you didn't enjoy, just know this is computer science, so it's very rarely are the cases that you're going to find fun unless you continue researching and so on. Otherwise, thank you very much. Just keep a like and then watch the next video. Thank you very much. It's Prince, aka the Zambian software developer. I'm out. Thank you.